We are available to you, and please connect with us on any sort of issue, whether it's teleworking or technical, please let us know. If you're unable to reach us by phone, email is an excellent way to find us, and you should be able to find my email and many others on our website, and we'll make sure that you have follow-up information on how to reach us after this webinar. So let's jump right into the webinar. We have 3 of our expert HGAC team members on the call, and each will talk to you about a different topic. First, we will explore setting up a telework program for your municipality or county with Jamila Owens, Program Manager for our Travel Demand Management Program. Next, our Director of Data Services, Tanya Wynn, will share a variety of free resources to help you with all of your technology and technical challenges and opportunities. And our Intergovernmental Relations Director, Rick Guerrero, will conclude the webinar with how to continue conducting your public meetings in this new virtual environment that we're all in. The presentation will be about 30 minutes, and then we will open up the line taking questions for the next 30 minutes. We will field questions through the chat function, and once we conclude the webinar, we will send out a follow-up email if we weren't able to get to your question on how you can reach us with those additional questions. The webinar will also be recorded and available online once we've got it up on the website. So without further ado, we're going to start with Jamila, and she's going to talk to you about how to build a telework program for your organization.
Hi guys, this is Jamila. Thank you, Megan. I am the program manager for the Travel Demand Management team, and what we're going to jump into right now is a list of 10 best practices for implementing a strong telework program. For those of you that already have a program in place, you might be dusting it off right now, taking a new look at it. And so just think of this as a checklist as you review your current program. So our first tip, or our first best practice, is to make sure you set a goal for your program. Setting a goal is something that should drive the way you design your program. It can have or achieve a number of goals, anything from parking reduction to employee recruitment and retention, cost savings, or pollution reduction. In our region, however, telework has become really important for resiliency and business continuation in the face of emergencies like increased flooding and, of course, now in our current environment. Whatever goals you set for your program, your next step will be to define a policy and a program that's going to support that goal. So let's jump into number 2. When you define your policy, you'll need to think about things like who can participate, what's your work week, what are your core hours going to be, any sort of cybersecurity or equipment considerations. But you'll also need to take a closer look at your policy, if you have one currently, to see if it fits the current environment. For instance, most telework policies typically do not allow teleworkers to provide dependent care while teleworking. However, if your program goals right now are health and safety and business continuation, with all of the schools being out during this emergency, that dependent care policy may not make a lot of sense. So in this current situation, you might consider things like providing guidance to employees about how to balance dependent care with telework, and we'll touch on that a bit more later. Let's go to number 3. Determining which tasks are best for telework is kind of the new way of thinking about telework. In the past, thinking has been that, some positions or industries weren't meant for telework. Now, as you think about your own local government organization, think about roles and tasks that are good fits. Any role that has elements of research, writing, reading, editing, manipulating data, telephone access, all of these can be great tasks for telework. So in each position, break out the tasks that can be good fits for telework, even if minor tweaks are required for how you might get these things done. Let's go to number 4. staying connected. Using technology to stay in connection with your employees is really important. Make sure you're hosting team meetings, staff meetings, conducting one-on-ones between managers and employees. You can share articles for online discussion, conduct brainstorming sessions or polls, and you can even do things like celebrate birthdays even in a virtual environment. I once worked with a technology company whose workers were spread across the globe, and what they would do is schedule candy deliveries so they would arrive on the same day as an in-office party to make sure teleworkers felt included. In this environment, you can do things like send virtual cards or that sort of thing to make sure you're staying in touch and keeping people engaged. Let's go to number 5. Training managers. One of the things that we get the most questions about as part of our Commute Solutions program is how to help managers manage virtually. And many managers will be used to literally watching their employees' physical presence or watching their time to make sure they're working. Instead, managers will have to make a mental shift to managing employees' tasks instead of their time. So this means laying out expectations for completing specific tasks in certain time frames and then managing completion of those tasks. Project management software, contact relationship management software, and other online tools can be leveraged to help with managing these tasks. But we also have a simple resource available called a telework planning form that you can also use to track specific tasks and their completion status. When we get to the end of these tips, we'll take a look at these resources online so that you know where you can download these and use them to make your own sort of tracking document. Also, at the bottom of the slide, you'll see that LinkedIn has a series of free trainings related to telework for not only managers, but also teleworkers. And these are really good tools to use to help people get up to speed on certain topics. Number 6, assign mentors to new teleworkers. Telework in this environment may be new for a lot of your employees. And so for those who've experienced telework before, you might be able to match them with the new teleworkers just for a quick check-in to make sure they're able to do things like set up software to conduct an online meeting or know how to locate files online. Helping set up mentor relationships can help eliminate bottlenecks and difficulties as you make this transition. Number 7, comply with state and federal laws. So I'm not an attorney, and I won't be able to elaborate a lot about this one. However, the Texas Bar Association recently put out a great article on March 10th about how to address some of the factors to keep in mind when setting up your policies and your agreements for telework, especially around non-exempt teleworkers and overtime. As you set up your policy and your program, it's a good idea to confer with your attorney about any policies and agreements you put in place to implement telework. And for those who are interested, we can also include the link to the Texas Bar Association article at the conclusion of our session today. Number 8, discussing dependent care options. So in short-term and emergency telework situations, telework allows the kind of flexibility that can help workers strike a balance between providing excellent work and also dependent care. During work hours, of course, work will need to be the priority, but solutions for also accommodating dependent care can include shifting to earlier or later starting times or scheduling breaks. Keep in mind that in spite of your best efforts, there may be situations where a balance can't be achieved and both can't occur. Teleworkers will need to stay in communication with their managers to discuss alternatives in this situation. Number 9, providing technology resources. So there are a number of free and low-cost resources to help organizations move to a virtual environment in all of the different categories that you see there listed on screen. My colleague Tanya Nguyen will go into some of these in more detail shortly. One of the things to make sure that you do consider is that employees have the hardware that they need to support use of these tools. some companies in our region are currently allowing for employees to check out equipment like desktops or laptops to make sure that they have the equipment that they need. And this is something that you can also consider. All right, number 10. Assess your program. So even when you put something into place, it'll be really helpful to make sure that you check in with your team, with your staff, to make sure everything's working as planned. Make sure you get feedback and then revamp as needed so that you can make sure that your program is achieving your goals. And the last slide. We have helpful tools online that you can use as you begin to tweak or implement a new telework program. If you look or visit the link, yourcommutesolution.com, as you click there, you'll be able to get to our partner section. And there is a resources section that has not only the tips that we've outlined today, but also a sample telework planning form, a sample telework agreement form, and a whole list of online resources that you can tap into, including the telework.gov site for the federal government, where you can get more information and tools and tips for setting up an appropriate telework program. If you have any questions about any of these resources on our website or how to reach the resources, feel free to reach out to me after today's session, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila. That was great. I really appreciated that and hearing all the great tips that you had. And so up next is going to be our Director of Data Services, Tanya Nguyen, and she's going to talk about free technology resources for working remotely. Tanya, you're up next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Nguyen. As Megan said, I'm the Director of Data Services for the Houston-Galveston Area Council. I'm honored to be here today to talk to you about technology resources for teleworkers and what we have done here at HGAC for our staff. At HGAC, we deploy Microsoft Teams to everyone after the Executive Director, Chuck Wamble, announced that we are entering phase 1 of the COVID-19 telework plan. We deploy team meeting to everyone, and team meeting is our primary one-on-one meetings, a conference call and video call. We have about 265 employees, and the reason why we picked Microsoft Teams is because we are already using Office 365. As we deploy Office 365 for telework, everyone uses their own laptop to VPN to the HGAC network. HGAC provide loaners to those who don't have one, and that's a small percentage of that. We use ShoreTel phone system, and the phone system is being forwarded to the staff cell phone, including the agency operator and receptionist. The application that staff could work from home include ranging from payroll, timesheet, accounting, finance, audit, purchasing, HR, and GIS. We also developed a resource page on our intranet, and that will be the one place where everyone will go to for official announcement and tools that they can use for their work. These are the things that we did at HGAC, and I will go through some of the next few slides. There are a couple of free resources that I want to share with you all. The reason is the last few days, I can see the industry is responding and offering a lot of free resources. If you don't have one, you can evaluate and pick one for your agency. The first one is Microsoft Office Team, and that's the one that I just talked about, HGAC. Microsoft announced that they will allow 6-month premium license at no cost to anyone and any agency. To sign up, all you have to do to go to the website, sign up as an agency, government agency, or as an individual using your personal email address. You can read more on their website, but this is a full version of what we are using today at HGAC for a fee. The next one is WebEx. WebEx has a personal license that you can sign up on the fly. WebEx can be used to conduct community meetings up to 100 participants in each meeting. Meet as long as you want. Call in, audio number, telephone number, and unlimited number of license meeting. The WebEx is up their feature during the COVID-19, so they might change and allow more participants. So watch out for their website. And the next one is Zoom. Zoom is the most popular audio conferencing on the industry today. They have a free basic personal license you can sign up for. The basic license it's the same as WebEx. 100 participants, meet as long as you want. A participant can join the meeting for free from a phone, from a desktop, mobile, and tablet devices. You don't have to have a license to join. Zoom, like I say, is the most popular one. So you might have already heard about it. And the next one. These are the few very popular among the new generations. If you have young workers and they probably on it already, if you want to deploy this, is probably the easiest. Using the Gmail account, they can have a Google Doc, which is a Google Drive. They can share the drive with other people. Anyone can work on the same document at the same time. There's a link for the Google Doc. Next slide. Is that all? Okay. So this is the last slide for me. These are the couple of free online storage. Google Drive 15 gig for free, OneDrive 5 gig, or Dropbox 2 gig for free. These are the drive that you can decide based on your need. The OneDrive is the most popular drive if you have a Microsoft account. If you have a computer at home, a PC, you probably have a Microsoft account. And you probably have a OneDrive mount to your desktop when you turn on the computer. The Google Drive, you require, again, the Google email to sign up. And the Dropbox is a platform that you can use to share large document across your agency and outside agency. These are some of the free resources you can use if you are not if you don't have one in place today for your agency. Right. And is that all I have? Yeah. So that's it. I want to share some of that experience with you and some of the free resources out there. If you have any question, my email will be at the end of the slide. If you have any question, I'd be happy to answer your question on the side or during this presentation. Thank you. Back to you, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya, for that excellent information. Very helpful. And definitely a shout out to Tanya and her team. We have relied on her so much during this time, and it's really impressive to see how the Houston-Galveston Area Council has transitioned from working in the office to working remotely very seamlessly and having access to everything that we need. It's really been fantastic. So we appreciate that. And we hope that others were able to get some information out of that. So our last portion of this presentation, this webinar, is to talk about how you can continue to host your public meetings in a virtual space, whether that is truly a public meeting or perhaps a council meeting or a commissioner's court or something like that. We're going to be able to share with you how you can do that, but most importantly, how you can stay in accordance with the law, with the Texas Open Meetings Act. And our Intergovernmental Relations Director, Rick Guerrero, is going to walk you through that and talk to you about how you can stay on course during these times. So Rick, you're up.
Thank you, Megan. So I want to thank all of you for being on this call today. We had some fantastic presenters kind of go over some of the technical aspect of continuity of operations and as well some best practices for implementing a telework program at your city or county or office. We appreciate all of you for being on today. We've gotten an overwhelming response from you all on this webinar. I'm not sure if Megan mentioned it at the very beginning, but in case you missed it and came on after, this presentation is recorded and will be made available to everyone. And the slides, if you are just listening along, you can also be found on our website at www.h-gac.com. So one of the things that we have encountered during this COVID-19 situation is have there been any changes and how can we continue to meet given all of the restrictions on sizes of gatherings in counties? And as that continues to unfold and more counties begin to restrict the gathering sizes, how can we continue our operations and continue to do the public business that we need to in our jurisdictions? And so the first question that you may want to ask yourself is your meeting typically subject to the Texas Open Meetings Act? And if it is, then this presentation is going to apply to you, as are some of the temporary suspensions that we are going to go over in just a moment. So there are some suspensions of certain Texas Open Meetings Act, that's TOMA, Texas Open Meetings Act statutes. Effective March 16th, the Attorney General received approval from the governor to temporarily suspend some Texas Open Meetings Act statutes. They are subject to certain conditions, and they are meant to reduce the congregate settings in our physical locations and allow for more telephonic and video conference interactions throughout to conduct the meetings and the business of the governing body. The suspensions are going to be in effect until terminated by the governor or until the disaster declaration has been lifted. And we'll go over what those suspensions are. But first, I want to emphasize what hasn't changed. Some of the public notice requirements, we still do have to post publicly our meetings at the city, at the county level, and even at the Regional Planning Commission level for those of our sister COGs that are on the phone. Public comment portion of the agenda, if we had it typically on a meeting agenda, we should continue to have that on our agendas moving forward as well. And quorum requirements as well. So the quorum requirements have not been suspended. It does allow for more flexibility. Kind of anecdotally, our HGAC Board of Directors, which includes 36 members, we had an overwhelming response to a meeting when we changed it to a conference call setting. So those quorum requirements to be able to take action on any items are still in place. So here are some of the temporary suspensions. Again, previously, prior to these suspensions, if you were going to move to a telephonic or video conference setting, at least one presiding officer would have needed to be present at the physical location that would be open to the public. That has been suspended. So you do need a quorum, but that quorum does not need to be in a physical location. You should have a presiding officer, but that person does not need to be at a physical location. They can now participate via telephone or via video conference. Meetings that require physical posting of a notice. So if you had previously posted your meeting agenda outside of your city hall or outside your commissioner's court or in a publicly accessible hallway of your building. As long as you have an online notice, provide a toll-free dial-in number for your meeting or free of charge video conference link and an electronic copy of your agenda packet, you have satisfied the need to publicly post this meeting in lieu of posting it physically at those locations. Meetings that require a telephonic and video conference meeting must be audible to members of the public. It used to be that if you had these types of meetings, those one-on-one interactions with members of the public at a physical location had to be ongoing. Given we've moved now to a dial-in number or a video conference link, as long as you make that information available to the public and allow for the public to be able to provide public comment during the public comment portion of your agenda, you've satisfied this need. You no longer have to have a physical open location for members of the public to provide public comment. So this is where making your information available on your meeting agendas, on your websites, letting them know that they can call in at a particular number if it's a toll-free number, or that they can engage via video conference on a video conference link, and making that information available on your agenda. Maybe if you typically advise your local members of the press or local members of the media that you are going to be meeting, letting them know how they can engage as well. There needs to be that two-way communication for members of the public. This is where picking that resource, some of the resources that Tanya was talking about, comes in very handy. You want to make sure that you are picking a resource that is going to allow for that two-way communication, and typically conference calls will allow you to do that. And any meetings that may be interpreted to require face-to-face interaction between members of the public or public officials, you have to offer that alternative method of communicating with public officials. So, selecting a resource, as I mentioned, something to think about, conference call line. Do you have one that you are already using? Maybe someone at your city or county organization already has a conference line that they're using, and that information can be shared. Maybe you don't necessarily need to acquire another service. How many people do you typically have at your city or county commissioner's court, and how many members of the public? Can that conference call line accommodate an audience of that size if they're going to be participating virtually? Those are questions you may want to ask. Is there a limit on the participants? Same with a virtual meeting. Is there a 1-800 number, a toll-free number that people can use to access that meeting? How easy is it to access? And will your members have the capability to either opt for a conference call line or to participate visually? Not everyone has a camera or a working microphone or speakers, believe it or not, on their computer. And so we have to make sure that you're thinking about those things as you select a resource to conduct your open meeting. Assigning a moderator. This was very helpful. Again, HGAC's board of directors includes 36 elected officials. And so keeping track of everything that's happening, it's always good to maybe assign a moderator. This might be easier when you have a city council of 5 individuals or a commissioner's court, but assigning a moderator may be a good practice for you. It's maybe different than a presiding officer. This person can handle some of the housekeeping items. If you selected a conference call line that doesn't have a moderator that is paid on the other line, this person can remind individuals to mute their phone line so you don't hear the dogs barking in the background. You want this individual to also kind of keep track and make sure that there is a quorum. They can unmute and unmute individuals during that portion of the public comment on your agenda, and keeping track of who's making the motions. It may be a little more challenging in a conference call environment. So you want to make sure that you capture who made the motion, who made the second, and whether or not the items passed unanimously or not. And also, as good practice, you may want to announce the temporary suspension of certain requirements and let members of the public who may be on the phone, members of the press who may be on the phone, let them know what measures you're taking to make sure that you are in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act and that you are trying to conduct business in a rapidly changing environment while still preserving public participation in your business. Some resources that may be available, that are available to you right now, are the Open Meetings Hotline with the Attorney General's office. There's the phone number there, 888-672-6787. This is a very kind of old school voicemail environment. If you call this line, no one will pick up, but they have a voicemail. You leave your contact information, what type of governing body you are, and what your question is, and someone will get back to you pretty promptly these days. If you call after 3 p.m., they may get back to you the next business day. They have experienced an influx of calls recently, but they will help you navigate any questions that you may have, or lean on me. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. If you have any questions after this, this is like I mentioned, this is a rapidly changing environment. HGAC, 2 weeks ago, as Tanya mentioned, we began testing our 250 member staff over the course of 3 days to go through a checklist and make sure that they have access to everything they need, identifying who has a laptop and who doesn't, who has a computer or internet at home, things that we kind of take for granted on a daily basis, and how will someone receive phone calls if someone calls the office. These are things that you want to consider as you're looking at business continuity. We developed a checklist. Can individuals access timesheets remotely, or a contract database, or softwares that they may need in their daily routine? Also, something to consider is particularly when using a software like Google Docs, from when we're at home and we may be using a tablet or a computer, what are the Public Information Act implications? Reminding your employees that any a document or medium that they create on their personal computer may be subject to the Open Meetings Act, to the Public Information Act. However, if they're in a virtual environment and that information is created in the transaction of public business, that would be the only document that would be subject to a Public Information Act request. But letting individuals know that maybe they should not be using their personal email address when transacting public business, particularly if they are trying to do that from their home computer. So some things for you to think about. And I appreciate all of you being on the call today. And if you have any other questions, my contact information is on the slide. And our email addresses are also up now, and I will hand it over to Megan to conduct our question answer portion of the meeting.
Thanks, Rick. We appreciate that excellent information and sharing all the knowledge that you have about how to continue business continuity, especially in regards to accommodating the laws that are out there with the Texas Open Meetings Act. So we do have, I believe, I know we have a chat box, and it looks like I can see a Q&A, but I'm going to try to read what I see coming through. And right now I'm looking at the chat box, so maybe that's the best place to ask your question. And again, if we don't get to your question today, we will certainly record these and provide responses and send that information out. So the first question that we have is, if we are not able to get the 800 toll-free numbers for teleconference, what are our options? I believe, Rick, this is a question for you.
Yes, well, if you aren't able to get a 1-800 number teleconference line, there are some free resources, and I may ask Tanya when to chime in on this. There are some free resources available. I believe there's a Google number that you may be able to create a number that people may be able to dial in for free. If not, if there is a local number that you would typically use in the area code for your city or your county, you could use that and make sure that that is publicly available to all, would be my response to that. Tanya, do you want to add anything to that?
I know that if you're using Microsoft Teams for your platform, Microsoft does allow 1-800 number for a charge. I believe it's a $5 per month per account, so it's not a whole lot. And you can log onto Microsoft Teams and query on the 1-800 number and read, because it's a lot of information on their site. I don't know about Zoom and WebEx. I have not looked them up, but I'm pretty sure they probably have the same features.
Thank you for that. So the next question is, would we be willing to share HGAC's checklist that was conducted a few weeks ago concerning who has computers, who has internet, etc.? Tanya, can you take that one? Just to reiterate the question.
Megan, I'm sorry, my speaker is, yes. Could you repeat the question? I didn't see it on the screen.
Sure. It's, would you be willing to share HGAC's checklist that was conducted a few weeks ago concerning who has computers, do they have internet, etc.? Is that something we could make available to participants?
I can make a high-level summary on a number of staff who have problems, but not down to the specific who.
Yeah, I think we can
If
certainly
I can
provide.
have an email, I can send that out.
Sure.
I can compile them.
Yeah, I think they're just looking for a template on how to perhaps use the same template for themselves.
Yes, I can share that information.
Our next question is, are we required to record our video conference of a council meeting and post it to a website? Rick, you want to take that one?
Yes, so the temporary suspensions do not require you to necessarily post it on a website, but it does require you to record your meeting and make it available to the public. So if you use a software like Zoom, which we are currently using on this call, it would automatically record a meeting for you. There are some conference call lines that will record your conference call in its entirety. But if not, the old school method of putting a tape recorder or a backup recorder next to your phone during the duration of the meeting would help satisfy this request and keep that recording at the very least until you've secured a transcription of the meeting from those minutes, and that gets approved by your governing body. And then after a few months, I think it's about 90 days, well, depending on your retention schedule, you can do away with that audio recording. But yes, it does require you to keep a recording as you're transacting governmental business.
So a follow-up question to that question, any records retention criteria for that recording?
No, not explicitly in the temporary suspensions. Any type of, as long as it is an audio recording of that business, of the transaction of business, you should be fine.
Thank you. And we have information that cites a quorum is not required when a disaster is declared. Rick, do you have any more information on that or something that you could expand on?
So the guidance that we have received from the Attorney General's office, now if you are an emergency operations center, or if you are operating under an emergency meeting, your quorum requirements are may vary. This was a very kind of high level overview of some of the temporary suspensions that you would see in your typical governing body. But if you are an emergency center or operating under special meeting requirements, those have not changed, and you would need to follow what is in the Open Meetings Act with regard to meeting under an emergency declaration for your particular entity.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a participant that's saying that there may be a different statute that we could take a look at, but we'll check in on that and make sure we're issuing the correct guidance there. We appreciate that insight from the participant and make sure we have the right information on that. I had a question if we'll be able to provide the materials and some samples and some lists and some how we do some virtual agendas and things. Yes, we will be able to send that out to this participant list via email, and we can post resources available on our website. Do we have any other questions at this time? We have covered a lot of information about how to set up a teleworking program, and not only how to set it up, but continue to engage with our employees and find creative ways to keep people connected in this virtual environment. We've talked about how to find free resources for technology and your technical challenges and opportunities. And we've discussed a lot about the Open Meetings Act and how to stay compliant and be able to conduct virtual meetings. Do we have any more questions at this time? Well, if we don't have any additional questions, we want to say thank you. We know that you're all busy, and we appreciate you taking the time to get on the webinar with us. This was recorded, and we'll also make that available as well. But like I said in the beginning, we are here for you, and anything that we can do to be a resource, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help in terms of anything that you've got going on. At least we can start a conversation. So with that, this concludes our webinar, and please look out for the resources. We hope you have a good week.